Blake Lively's evolution from Hollywood's Golden Girl to Courtroom headline is a story that feels almost cinematic, fitting for someone who built her career on transforming fiction into fashion-fueled fantasy. For years, she was celebrated as the embodiment of effortless sophistication, the real-life Serena van der Woodsen who made every designer label shimmer under the spotlight. But as new revelations continue to emerge, her legacy as a creative powerhouse is being re-examined under a far less flattering light. To understand how things spiraled to this point, you have to go back to Gossip Girl, where Blake's fascination with fashion first became her trademark, and according to some, her obsession. The official costume designer on the series, Eric Damon, was the genius who crafted the iconic wardrobes that defined Serena and Blair's styles. Yet Blake herself has repeatedly hinted that she was more than just a canvas for couture. In interview after interview, she proudly declared that she would arrive on set bursting with ideas for colors, silhouettes, handbags, and entire outfit themes. She described working with her as like drinking through a fire hose, her mind constantly overflowing with creative direction. At first, that kind of passion seemed admirable. Audiences and colleagues saw a young actress so deeply invested in storytelling that she viewed every outfit as an extension of the script. She wasn't just dressing for a scene, she was sculpting a narrative through fabric and texture. Fashion, in her eyes, wasn't superficial. It was language. It was power. But behind the scenes, some insiders whisper that this same energy occasionally crossed the line from collaboration to control. Crew members have quietly shared that Lively's influence on Gossip Girl often stretched beyond her character's wardrobe. They claim she sometimes pushed for storylines to shift around certain fashion moments, suggested camera angles that best captured her styling, and even advised on how other actors should be framed within the scene. While such assertiveness was often excused as ambition, it also hinted at a deeper desire for authorship, one that would later define and derail her work in It Ends With Us. When Blake signed on to star in and produce the adaptation of Colleen, Hoover's best-selling novel, many saw it as her moment to evolve, from actress to full-fledged creative force. She wasn't just starring as Lily Bloom, she was shaping the tone, the look, and the message of the entire film. Reports even claim that she secured a PGA, Producers Guild of America credit, which put her on equal footing with the director, Justin Baldoni, not as a subordinate, but as a collaborator with authority over production decisions. That authority, however, may have become the root of the chaos that followed. On paper, the film was poised for success. The book's massive fan base virtually guaranteed box office gold, and Blake's involvement seemed like a marketing dream. But according to court filings and insider reports, what began as a promising partnership soon turned into a battle for creative control. Lively's camp has described the production as a hostile environment, claiming she was subjected to inappropriate behavior and boundary violations by Baldoni. She alleges that she fought not for vanity, but for her safety and integrity. Yet Wayfarer Studios, Baldoni's company, paints a very different picture. They claim Blake's need to control every aspect of production made her impossible to work with, that she micromanaged costume choices, rewrote scenes without approval, and weaponized her social media following to pressure the studio into compliance. The tension reportedly reached a breaking point during post-production, when disagreements over tone and editing became explosive. Lively's team insists she was advocating for authenticity, wanting the film to reflect the emotional rawness of Hoover's novel. Baldoni's team argues she hijacked the project, twisting its vision into something self-serving and commercial. By the time the marketing campaign began, those creative cracks had become public fractures. On social media, Blake's posts promoting the film were bright, bubbly, and undeniably Blake. Floral dresses, candid smiles, cocktails from her own beverage line. It all clashed with the heavy subject matter of It Ends With Us, a story centered on domestic abuse and resilience. Fans were confused, critics were merciless. They accused her of trivializing trauma and turning a serious story into another vehicle for personal branding. Instead of retreating, Blake defended herself, saying she was simply excited to share her work and her style. But the backlash only intensified, and behind the scenes, the legal storm clouds were already gathering. Soon, accusations turned into lawsuits. Blake Lively filed suit against Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios, alleging defamation, retaliation, and emotional distress. She claimed the studio spread false narratives about her behavior to sabotage her career. In response, Baldoni countered, with his own lawsuit accusing her of breaching her contract, leaking confidential production details, and launching a coordinated media campaign to destroy his reputation. That's when the focus shifted to one explosive element: the contract. Wayfarer's legal team requested that the court unseal Blake's executive producer agreement, a move that shocked Hollywood observers. Most studios fight tooth and nail to keep such documents sealed, especially when they involve A-list talent. Unsealing it meant one thing: they were confident it would prove their point. Analysts quickly speculated that the contract might contain clauses that could make or break the case, specifically the morality clause, the confidentiality and non-disparagement clauses, and the termination remedies. In Hollywood, a morality clause allows a studio to cut ties if an actor's behavior brings disrepute, scandal, or ridicule to the production. If Lively had such a clause and was found to have publicly disparaged Wayfarer or leaked internal materials, she could face serious consequences, including termination or repayment of her earnings. Then there's the confidentiality clause, which prohibits sharing private information about the production, co-workers, or disputes. If Blake was behind any of the leaks or media narratives that painted Baldoni as abusive or the set as toxic, that could constitute a violation. And the non-disparagement clause? That's the nail in the coffin. It typically forbids any statement, even if true, that could be reasonably construed as damaging or detrimental to the producer or the project. If Wayfarer can prove she violated those provisions, not only could her lawsuit crumble, but the studio could countersue for damages, legal fees, and even claw back the bonuses or salaries she received. Lively's defenders argue that this interpretation is one-sided. They claim the studio is trying to silence her under the guise of contractual technicalities. They say she was standing up for herself, and that her outspokenness should not be weaponized against her. But for every statement her team releases, Wayfarer's side responds with another allegation: that she manipulated the press, sabotaged publicity efforts, and turned professional disagreements into public scandal. What makes this situation especially volatile is that Blake's professional identity has always been intertwined with control. On Gossip Girl, she shaped fashion narratives that inspired an entire generation. On It Ends With Us, she sought to shape the emotional narrative itself, but the same drive that once fueled her success may now be the very thing threatening to undo it. Even her husband, Ryan Reynolds, has become part of the discourse. Insiders claim he offered script input, helping rewrite scenes, including the rooftop sequence, to make them feel more authentic. Lively has confirmed that Ryan contributed, calling his additions 99% his. While that might sound romantic, to studio lawyers it could look like an unapproved rewrite, another breach of creative boundaries. As all of this unfolds, public opinion has become deeply polarized. To some, Blake is a trailblazer, a woman refusing to be sidelined, demanding artistic respect in an industry that often punishes assertive women. To others, she's the architect of her own downfall, a perfectionist whose need for control tipped into arrogance. But one thing is certain: this lawsuit isn't just about one movie. It's about power, image, and accountability in Hollywood. It's about who gets to tell the story, and who gets blamed when that story collapses. If the court does unseal the contract, the fallout could be massive. We might finally see the truth about what Blake Lively agreed to, what she defied, and what Wayfarer really feared. It could vindicate her as a victim of studio manipulation, or expose her as a producer who violated her own terms. Either way, the result will redefine how audiences see her, not as Serena van der Woodsen, not as the fashion icon who conquered red carpets, but as a woman caught in the most high-stakes role of her career, defending her own name in a real-life drama that no stylist, publicist, or Instagram filter can fix. What started as a creative dream quickly spiraled into one of Hollywood's most shocking controversies. Sources close to the project claim that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds wanted not just to star in or support It Ends With Us, but to control its entire cinematic future, including the sequel It Starts With Us. What was once billed as a heartfelt adaptation soon became a full-scale industry storm, pitting star power against creative authority in a battle that could reshape both of their careers. Behind the scenes, reports suggest there were two competing narratives. Blake Lively allegedly framed herself as a professional facing unfair treatment in a male-dominated system, while director Justin Baldoni was painted as the independent filmmaker trying to hold on to his artistic vision against overwhelming celebrity influence. And then there was Ryan Reynolds, unusually quiet for someone known for his sharp humor and constant public engagement. His silence only deepened the speculation. Was he planning a legal counter-strategy or simply waiting for the chaos to settle? What should have been a smooth, prestige-level production quickly devolved into what analysts are calling a $400 million meltdown. According to insiders, once international distribution deals, merchandising, and franchise extensions were factored in, the financial fallout could be staggering. This wasn't just about one film. It was about control over an empire. Justin Baldoni, once celebrated for his sensitivity and sincerity as both actor and director, suddenly found himself surrounded by controversy. Within weeks of on-set tensions making headlines, major partnerships reportedly vanished. Agencies pulled back, podcasts went quiet, and film projects in development were quietly shelved. The reversal was swift and brutal, one that even seasoned Hollywood insiders called career-altering. The turning point came when media outlets began publishing accounts, portraying Baldoni as a controlling director who clashed with his leading star. Whether audiences believed it or not, the damage was done. In Hollywood, perception is power. And in this case, perception became punishment. Baldoni's legal team soon went on the offensive. They argued that their client was being targeted through a deliberate campaign to sideline him and gain greater control of the production. In court filings, they claimed to have evidence showing a coordinated effort to shift media coverage and alter public opinion. The implication was serious, that what looked like an artistic disagreement may have been a calculated strategy to take over the entire creative direction. Then came the next twist. Blake Lively's attorneys reportedly filed a motion asking for a gag order against Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, accusing him of leaking private information to the press. Friedman fired back, saying that his actions were a direct response to prior leaks allegedly coming from the other side. When the issue reached federal court, Judge Lewis Lyman denied the motion, allowing Friedman to keep releasing documents. That ruling changed everything. Within days, new documents began circulating, messages, notes, and internal discussions suggesting that Blake Lively was deeply involved in decisions far beyond the usual scope of an actor. The records described her reshaping entire scenes, rewriting dialogue, adjusting wardrobe choices, and even influencing editing sessions. Some claimed she wanted more control over how the film was promoted and who appeared in press materials. For veteran producers, this raised alarms. The film industry relies on strict production hierarchies to keep massive budgets on track and protect creative integrity. Lively's level of involvement, if true, would have been almost unprecedented for someone not formally attached as a producer. Still, to her fans, it looked like passion, not interference, an artist deeply invested in the story and determined to see it done right. But from Baldoni's perspective, it was the opposite. His team argued that Lively's actions had gone far beyond normal collaboration, and that her influence had caused confusion and friction on set. They painted a picture of a production in chaos, one where artistic leadership had become secondary to star-driven control. As the documents spread, another layer emerged: Ryan Reynolds' alleged behind-the-scenes influence. Baldoni's camp suggested that Reynolds, known for his own success with Deadpool and his sharp business instincts, used his industry connections to back his wife's position. The goal, they claimed, was much larger than a single film. By steering It Ends With Us and securing the rights to It Starts With Us, they could effectively build a new multi-film franchise under their creative control, a potentially billion-dollar opportunity. That's when the whispers turned into a full-scale Hollywood crisis. Legal experts began calling it one of the most complex disputes in recent memory, not just because of the money involved, but because of the reputations at stake. Blake Lively's public image as a grounded, respected actress was suddenly in question. Justin Baldoni's carefully cultivated reputation as a thoughtful filmmaker was collapsing. And Ryan Reynolds' silence made everything feel even more mysterious. The fallout extended beyond courtrooms and movie sets. PR teams scrambled to contain narratives, publicists worked overtime to manage fan backlash, and industry insiders began wondering whether It Ends With Us would even make it to release without major damage. For fans, the experience was surreal. What was once a love story about healing and resilience had become a Hollywood parable about power, ego, and ambition. Comment sections filled with divided opinions, some defending Lively's dedication to her art, others criticizing the blurring of boundaries between actor and filmmaker. And now, with hundreds of pages of court filings, emails, and conflicting testimonies floating through the public domain, one thing is clear: this battle is far from over. The next moves could redefine how much creative control a star can claim, how studios handle public controversies, and how quickly Hollywood's most powerful players can fall from grace when the spotlight turns on them. What began as a book adaptation has become something much larger, a story of control, perception, and the high cost of chasing creative power in an industry that runs on image. And as both sides prepare for the next phase of the legal fight, one truth is emerging. In modern Hollywood, the real drama doesn't unfold on screen. It happens behind it. With global licensing, streaming exclusives, merchandising, and franchise tie-ins on the line, the stakes surrounding It Ends With Us have become enormous. Industry insiders say that if Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds manage to gain full creative control, they could shape not only the film's direction, but also the potential sequel, It Starts With Us, turning the project into a long-term Hollywood empire. But that ambition clashes with the image Ryan Reynolds has spent years building. He's seen as Hollywood's charming golden boy, quick-witted, down-to-earth, and endlessly self-deprecating. Fans know him for his banter with Hugh Jackman, his playful marketing of aviation gin, and his investments in sports and media ventures. For many, the idea that he'd ever engage in a behind-the-scenes power move feels unthinkable. Yet to others, that's exactly what makes the story so intriguing, because the higher the profile, the higher the stakes. Reactions among fans have been divided. Supporters of Lively argue that women in Hollywood have long faced dismissive directors and restrictive environments, and that her assertiveness simply reflects a woman taking control of her creative work. They see her not as overreaching, but as standing up for artistic vision. Critics, however, interpret the events differently. They point to earlier marketing controversies, such as promotions that some felt clashed with the film's sensitive themes, and suggest that the narrative of victimhood might have emerged as a strategy to deflect from those missteps. Whether fair or not, the debate has split the public, some calling it empowerment, others calling it PR maneuvering. Meanwhile, studio executives are watching closely. If the court determines that any false information or deliberate manipulation occurred, the implications could reshape how much influence major stars have over productions. Conversely, if it's shown that a director created an unhealthy work environment, the case could strengthen accountability standards across Hollywood. Judge Louis Lyman, who's presiding over the matter, has reportedly grown impatient with the constant back and forth between legal teams. Sources say he has warned that the court will not tolerate endless media sparring and hinted that an accelerated trial date could be set if hostilities persist. That potential acceleration poses real challenges for Blake Lively, who has already faced intense public scrutiny. An early trial could leave her little time to recalibrate her narrative or negotiate a quiet settlement behind closed doors. What began as an adaptation of a beloved novel has now evolved into a high-stakes legal and reputational showdown. For Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, their carefully crafted image as Hollywood's most relatable couple now faces unprecedented pressure. For Justin Baldoni, the director once celebrated for his emotional storytelling, this fight has become about more than contracts. It's about professional survival and the chance to clear his name. The conflict reached a new flashpoint when reports surfaced that Lively's legal team had requested to delay her deposition with Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, citing discomfort with his previous public statements. But courts rarely accommodate personal discomfort. Legal procedure demands equal accountability. The request was swiftly denied, meaning Lively will have to face questioning directly. That single ruling could change the trajectory of the entire case. For Baldoni, who's endured months of canceled projects and lost partnerships, the chance to put everything on the record represents an opportunity to rebuild credibility. Insiders claim he views the courtroom as his best chance to reset the narrative, replacing social media speculation with sworn testimony and evidence. If Baldoni can substantiate his claims with verifiable documents, witnesses, or correspondence, he could potentially reclaim not just his professional footing, but also significant financial restitution. However, if he fails to meet that high evidentiary bar, the consequences could be career-ending. Studios value predictability, and few are willing to finance a filmmaker associated with unresolved public conflict. The same risk extends to Lively and Reynolds. For years, they've embodied the archetype of the grounded, good-humored Hollywood couple, openly affectionate yet approachable, playful yet professional. From witty social media exchanges to carefully managed business ventures, Their brand has always been built on authenticity and charm. But this controversy has introduced cracks into that image. Allegations of behind-the-scenes tension, creative disputes, and power struggles now threaten to overshadow their reputations. If the court ultimately sides with Baldoni, the couple could face a significant reputational hit, not just in Hollywood, but with audiences who once saw them as untouchable. In a single verdict, they could go from being symbols of stability to examples of how even the brightest stars can stumble when art, ego, and influence collide. That's what makes this case so captivating. It's not just about a film, it's about legacy, control, and perception. It's a collision of power narratives. The director fighting for artistic integrity, the actress demanding agency, and the superstar husband navigating the fallout. Observers say this could become one of the most talked about Hollywood legal dramas in decades. Not because of the money alone, but because it lays bare the delicate balance between fame and accountability. The courtroom might determine more than just who wins a contract dispute. It could redefine how power operates behind the camera in modern Hollywood. And as the world waits, one question dominates every conversation. Who will walk away from this saga with their career intact? Can Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, masters of media reinvention, reclaim their narrative once again? Or will Justin Baldoni, through hard evidence and persistence, manage to prove that his downfall was never of his own making? Either way, the outcome promises to be seismic. This is no scripted drama, no comic book satire. It's real, raw, and consequential. In a town built on image, the truth can be more devastating than fiction. The stage is set, and the next act of Hollywood's most unpredictable feud is about to unfold.